My fiancée said I know you paid $130,000 to save my parents' house, but were signing it to me. My sister demanded $150,000 for my savings. I said no. And booked a one-way ticket instead. That was the sentence that shattered my entire world. It was a Tuesday evening, the kind of evening where the golden hour light filters through the kitchen window, making everything look peaceful and permanent. I was standing by the island, pouring 2 glasses of wine, thinking about how lucky I was. I had a thriving business, a beautiful fiancée named Chloe, and we were months away from our wedding. But that peace was a lie. Chloe walked into the room, her face set in a mask of cold determination that I had never seen before. She didn't look like the woman I'd proposed to on a beach in Maui. She looked like a stranger holding a legal folder. "Mark, we need to talk about the deed to my parents' house," she said, her voice devoid of any warmth. I set the wine bottle down, my heart beginning a slow, heavy thud against my ribs. 3 months ago, her parents were on the verge of losing everything. Foreclosure was days away. They were devastated, crying in our living room about how they'd be homeless in their 60s. Without a second thought, I dipped into my hard-earned business reserves and paid off the $130,000 balance. It was a gift. Or so I thought. I didn't want a loan. I wanted my future in-laws to have peace of mind. "What about it, Chloe?" "I thought the paperwork was finalized last month," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. She slid the folder across the marble countertop. "It was, but we're changing it. My dad and I talked. Since it's my family's legacy, we're signing the title over to me. Just me. You've already paid the money, so the bank is happy, but for the sake of the family lineage, your name shouldn't be on the deed." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Chloe, I paid the entire amount. Every single cent came from my savings. If we're getting married, that house is part of our joint future, or at the very least, a shared asset. Why would you purposefully exclude me?" She didn't blink. "It's a family house, Mark. You're joining the family, sure, but you aren't of the bloodline. Why are you being so greedy about it? You have your business. You have plenty of money. Why do you need to own my parents' roof too?" The word greedy hit me like a physical blow. I had just saved her parents from the street, and now I was the one being portrayed as the villain. I looked at the folder. It was already drafted. A quitclaim deed, waiting for signatures that would legally erase my contribution to that property forever. I realized then that this wasn't just a sudden thought. This was a calculated move. CTA, subscribe before part 2, you don't want to miss what happens next. Hit the bell icon. But the house was only the beginning of the nightmare that was about to unfold that week. As I stood there staring at the woman I thought I knew, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from my younger sister, Sarah. And as I opened it, I realized the vultures weren't just circling from one side. But the house was only the beginning of the nightmare that was about to unfold that week. As I stood there staring at the woman I thought I knew, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from my younger sister, Sarah. And as I opened it, I realized the vultures weren't just circling from one side. I didn't answer Chloe. I couldn't. I walked out of the kitchen, ignoring her calls of "Mark, don't walk away from a legal discussion," and went into my home office. I slumped into my chair and looked at the text from Sarah. It read, "Hey big bro. I know you're doing great with the agency. I've been thinking, since you're making so much, I really need $150,000 to start my boutique. I found the perfect location in the city. Send me the wire details by Friday." I stared at the screen in disbelief. $150,000? Sarah had never held a job for more than 6 months. She had spent the last 3 years finding herself on my dime, with me paying her rent and car insurance. Now, on the heels of Chloe trying to strip me of the house I just paid for, my own sister treats my bank account like an ATM. I called her immediately. "Sarah, are you serious? $150,000? I just spent a massive chunk of my liquidity saving Chloe's parents' house. I'm not a bank." Her voice came through the speaker, high-pitched and instantly defensive. "Oh, so you can spend 6 figures on your girlfriend's family, but when your own blood needs help, you're not a bank? That is so incredibly selfish, Mark. Mom and Dad would be ashamed. You're the rich one. It's your responsibility to lift the rest of us up. It's not my responsibility to fund a boutique you have no business plan for." I shouted. I've supported you for years, Sarah. When does it end? She let out a sharp, jagged laugh. It ends when I'm as successful as you. Until then, you owe me. If you don't give me that money, I'm telling Mom you're cutting me off. See how the family feels about you then. She hung up before I could respond. I sat in the silence of my office, the walls feeling like they were closing in. In the span of an hour, the two most important women in my life had revealed that they didn't see me as a partner or a brother. They saw me as a treasury. I heard the door open behind me. It was Chloe. She didn't look sorry. She looked annoyed. Are we finished with your little tantrum? She asked, leaning against the doorframe. My parents are coming over for dinner tomorrow to celebrate the house being back in the family. I expect you to be gracious. Don't bring up the money. It makes them feel small. I looked at her, really looked at her. Her designer clothes, her engagement ring that cost me a year's salary, the coldness in her blue eyes. You want me to sit there and smile while they celebrate me giving them $130,000 for nothing in return? You got me in return, Mark, she said, as if she were the ultimate prize and I was lucky to have even paid for the privilege. That was the moment a tiny spark of rebellion lit up in my chest. I wasn't going to be the family's personal ATM anymore. I needed to know how deep this went. The next day, I didn't go to work. Instead, I drove to Chloe's parents' house, the house I had saved. I saw the new roof, the manicured lawn, the brand new SUV in the driveway that I hadn't seen before. My gut twisted. I pulled up and saw her father, Arthur, sitting on the porch. He didn't look like a man who had almost been homeless. He looked triumphant. I got out of the car and walked up the path. Arthur, I nodded. He looked up, a tight smile on his face. Mark. Chloe said you were a bit sensitive about the deed. Look, son, you have to understand. This is an ancestral home. We can't have it tied up in your business assets or potential future divorces. It has to stay with Chloe. Potential future divorces? I repeated. Arthur, we haven't even walked down the aisle yet, and you're already talking about the end of the marriage? I paid the $130,000 to help you. Not to buy a house for Chloe to own separately. Arthur stood up, his stature imposing. You paid the money to secure your place in this family. Don't ruin it by being transactional. Now, are you coming to dinner tonight, or are you going to keep acting like a debt collector? I turned around and walked back to my car without another word. I felt sick. As I drove away, I saw Chloe's car pulling in. She didn't see me, but I saw who was in the passenger seat. It was my sister, Sarah. They were laughing. They were holding shopping bags from high-end stores. My mind raced. How long had they been in league? Was Sarah's demand for $150,000 linked to Chloe's house grab? I pulled over into a parking lot and opened my laptop. I have a background in digital forensics. It's how I built my agency. I decided to do something I'm not proud of. I logged into our shared home cloud account. Chloe had left her messages synced. What I found made my blood run cold. There was a group chat titled The Foundation. It consisted of Chloe, her mother, and my sister Sarah. I scrolled back. Mark is doing another $50,000 this month, Sarah had written. We need to make sure he spreads it around before the wedding. Once the papers are signed, it'll be harder to get him to move the big chunks. Chloe had replied, Don't worry. The house is the first step. Once I have the title, I'll convince him to invest in your boutique. He's a softie. He'll do anything to keep the peace. I sat in my car, the air conditioning blasting, but I was sweating. I wasn't a fiancé. I wasn't a brother. I was a project. They were harvesting me. I looked at my bank balance. I had enough for what I needed to do. I wasn't going to dinner. I was going to a travel site. I didn't go home that night. I checked into a hotel under a business name and spent the night systematically disconnecting my life. If they wanted to play a game of legal chess, I was going to flip the board. I contacted my lawyer at 7 a.m. Jim, I need to pause the wedding preparations. And I need you to look into the $130,000 transfer I made to Chloe's parents. It was sent under the pretense of a joint investment. If they are signing the deed only to Chloe, I want to file a lien against the property immediately for the full amount plus interest. Jim whistled over the phone. That's a Scorched Earth move, Mark. You sure? I thought about the group chat. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Next, I called my office. I told my second-in-command that I was taking an indefinite leave of absence. I transferred the operational power and moved my personal holdings into a private offshore account I'd set up for international expansion years ago. I was becoming a ghost. I finally went back to the house around noon. Chloe was there, fuming. Where were you? My parents waited for 2 hours. You made me look like a fool, she screamed as I walked through the door. I didn't even look at her. I walked straight to the bedroom and started pulling out a suitcase. What are you doing? She asked, her voice dropping from a scream to a hiss of genuine fear. I'm going on a trip, Chloe. Business. It's urgent. She grabbed my arm. You can't leave. Sarah is coming over. She needs to talk to you about the boutique. She's already signed a letter of intent for the lease because she thought you were a man of your word. I stopped and looked at her. She signed a lease with money she doesn't have? That sounds like a Sarah problem, doesn't it? Chloe's eyes narrowed. You're being cruel. This isn't you. Is this because of the house? Fine. We can talk about putting your name on the deed in 5 years. Is that what you want? 5 years. I laughed. Chloe, the only thing happening in 5 years is that I'll be thousands of miles away from you. I know about the Foundation group chat. The color drained from her face. She stepped back, her hand flying to her mouth. Mark, that was just girl talk. We were joking. We just wanted to make sure we were taken care of. I'm not a harvest, Chloe. I'm a human being. And you and my sister just lost the best thing that ever happened to you. I zipped the suitcase. I had my passport, my laptop, and my pride. Everything else in this house was just furniture. I was at the gate at the international terminal when I saw them. Chloe, Sarah, and Chloe's father Arthur. They must have tracked my phone before I turned off the location. They were sprinting through the terminal, looking frantic. Security stopped them at the gate, but they were loud enough that the entire waiting area was staring. Mark. You come back here right now. Sarah was screaming, her face red. You can't do this. The landlord is going to sue me. You promised. I stood up and walked to the security line rope. I looked at my sister. I never promised you a dime, Sarah. I promised to help you if you worked hard. Demanding $150,000 isn't working hard. It's extortion. Call Mom. Tell her why I'm leaving. Tell her about the group chat. Sarah started to cry, real ugly tears of someone who realized their golden goose had flown away. Then Arthur stepped forward. Mark, let's be reasonable. The house. We can change the deed today. Right now. Just don't do this. Don't leave Chloe like this. I looked at Arthur. It was never about the deed, Arthur. It was about the fact that you thought I was stupid enough to pay for my own exclusion. You can keep the house. But you should know, my lawyer filed a lien this morning. If you ever try to sell it, or if Chloe tries to take the title, you'll have to pay me back every cent of that $130,000 first. With interest. Arthur's face went from pleading to pure rage. You son of a... You can't do that. That was a gift. I smiled. I have the emails where you called it an investment in the family. My lawyer says that's enough to hold up in court. Enjoy your house. It's going to be very expensive to keep. Finally, I looked at Chloe. She was silent, shaking. Why? She whispered. I loved you. I shook my head. No, Chloe. You loved the lifestyle I provided. You loved the security of my bank account. If you loved me, you wouldn't have been plotting to strip me of my assets with my own sister. Have a nice life. The gate agent announced the final boarding call. I handed over my boarding pass. I didn't look back. I could hear them arguing with each other as I walked down the jet bridge, the sound of a foundation crumbling to dust. CTA, subscribe before part 6, the story is just getting started. Hit the bell icon. The plane took off, and for the first time in 3 years, I felt like I could breathe. I had booked a flight to Tokyo. No plan, no return date, just a laptop and the ability to run my agency from anywhere in the world. As the clouds moved beneath the wing, I opened my phone and started the final stage of my exit. I blocked Chloe. I blocked Sarah. I blocked Arthur. But then, I received an email. It was from my mother. She had heard Sarah's version of the story. "Mark, how could you leave your sister in such a legal mess? She says you're trying to sue Chloe's parents and that you've run away with all the family's money. Please, come home and talk to us. We're a family." I felt a pang of guilt, but then I remembered the group chat. I replied to the email with a single attachment, a PDF of the screenshots from the foundation. I added a short note: "Mom, Sarah wasn't a victim. She was an accomplice. I've spent $200,000 on her in the last 3 years. I'm done. I'm taking care of myself now. Don't contact me until you've read those messages." I spent the next 14 hours in the air, thinking about how I had let it get this far. I had been so focused on building my business and providing, that I hadn't noticed I was surrounded by people who only valued the provision, not the provider. I had been a softie, as Chloe put it. But that version of Mark died somewhere over the Pacific Ocean. When I landed in Tokyo, the humidity hit me, a thick warm blanket of a new reality. I checked into a small high-end hotel in Shinjuku. I sat at the desk and looked at the city lights. My phone started buzzing again. It was a new number. "Mark, it's Chloe. Please. I'm at your house. There are people here. They're taking the furniture? What is happening?" I realized I had forgotten to mention one thing. I hadn't just left. I had ended the lease on our luxury rental and sold the furniture to a staging company. Everything in that house was being cleared out. Chloe had nowhere to stay. "The lease was in my name, Chloe," I typed back. "And since I don't live there anymore, there's no reason for the lease to continue. You have your parents' house. The one I paid for. Go stay there. Oh wait, you'll have to explain to them why there's a legal lien on the front door. Goodbye, Chloe." I blocked the new number. 2 weeks passed. I was living a minimalist life in Japan, working 5 hours a day and spending the rest exploring the mountains. But the drama from home refused to stay in the past. My lawyer, Jim, called me with an update. "Mark, you wouldn't believe the chaos," Jim laughed. "Sarah tried to sue you for emotional distress and breach of verbal contract regarding the boutique. The judge threw it out in 5 minutes. But here's the kicker. Chloe's parents tried to take out a second mortgage on the house to pay off Sarah's lease debt, because apparently, Chloe felt guilty for dragging Sarah into it. But they couldn't get the mortgage because of your lien. The whole family is in a financial deadlock." I felt a grim sense of satisfaction. "What about Chloe?" I asked. Jim sighed. "She's been calling the office every day. She's claiming you stole her engagement ring because you took it back from the jewelry box before you left. I told her that since the wedding didn't happen, the gift is legally returnable in this state. She's broke, Mark. She spent all her savings on the wedding deposits that are now non-refundable." I looked out at the Shinto shrine across from my balcony. I didn't feel happy exactly. I just felt light. I had been carrying the weight of 4 people's lives on my shoulders, and now that I dropped them, they were realizing they didn't know how to walk on their own. "Let them figure it out, Jim," I said. "Don't accept any settlements. The lien stays until the $130,000 is back in my account. Not a penny less." That evening, I got one last message from my sister. It wasn't a demand for money. It was a long, rambling apology. She admitted that Chloe had promised her a cut of the house equity if Sarah helped manage me. They had a whole plan to slowly drain my accounts until I was dependent on them. It was a level of betrayal I couldn't even process. I didn't reply. Some bridges don't just need to be burned, they need to be nuked. It's been 6 months since I booked that one-way ticket. I'm currently sitting in a small cafe in Lisbon, Portugal. My agency is more profitable than ever because I'm no longer distracted by the constant emotional drain of my former life. I've lost weight, I look younger, and for the first time in my life, I'm not providing for anyone but myself. Chloe's parents eventually had to sell the SUV and move into a smaller apartment to pay me back. I received the $130,000 wire last month. I donated half of it to a charity that helps people with legal aid, and I put the rest back into my business. Chloe is working a retail job now, according to mutual friends. She sends me an email every few weeks, but I never open them. Some people are lessons, not lifelong partners. My sister Sarah is back living with our parents. She's finally working a real job, and while our relationship is still non-existent, I hear she's learning the value of a dollar for the first time in her 30 years of life. Maybe my leaving was the best thing I ever did for her, too. Before we reach the end, what would you have done? Subscribe and hit the bell icon for more stories like this. I often think about that Tuesday evening in the kitchen. I think about the wine I was pouring and the future I thought I had. It's scary how quickly your life can turn into a script you didn't write. But the beautiful thing about being the one with the pen is that you can always start a new chapter. I'm not the softie anymore. I'm a man who knows his worth, and I'll never let anyone treat my hard work as their birthright again. Thank you for staying until the end of this journey. This story is a harsh reminder that sometimes, the people closest to us are the ones who see us as nothing more than a means to an end. It's a reminder that family is more than just blood. It's about loyalty, respect, and mutual support. When that support becomes one-sided, it isn't a relationship anymore, it's a parasitism. I want to ask you all a question today. If you found out your partner was plotting with your own family to take control of your assets, what would be your breaking point? Would you try to fix it, or would you book a one-way ticket like I did? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one of them, and your stories often help others who might be going through the same thing. Before we reach the end, what would you have done? Subscribe and hit the bell icon for more stories like this. I often think about that Tuesday evening in the kitchen. I think about the wine I was pouring and the future I thought I had. It's scary how quickly your life can turn into a script you didn't write. But the beautiful thing about being the one with the pen is that you can always start a new chapter. I'm not the softie anymore. I'm a man who knows his worth, and I'll never let anyone treat my hard work as their birthright again. Thank you for staying until the end of this journey. This story is a harsh reminder that sometimes, the people closest to us are the ones who see us as nothing more than a means to an end. It's a reminder that family is more than just blood. It's about loyalty, respect, and mutual support. When that support becomes one-sided, it isn't a relationship anymore, it's a parasitism. I want to ask you all a question today. If you found out your partner was plotting with your own family to take control of your assets, what would be your breaking point? Would you try to fix it, or would you book a one-way ticket like I did? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one of them, and your stories often help others who might be going through the same thing. If you enjoyed this 35-minute deep dive into this drama, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow and allows us to keep bringing these intense, real-life stories to you. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on the notification bell. We have a massive story coming up next week about a groom who found out his bride was a professional wedding scammer. You won't want to miss it. Take care of yourselves, watch your backs, and remember, your hard-earned success belongs to you. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting what you've built. Until next time, stay tuned.